The Suzuki Hayabusa is a bit of an icon in motorcycling, even going as far as reaching cult status. It's known as the king of speed, and why not? For 2 decades it ruled the roads. But sometimes we forget that the Busa has a brother. It's this, the Suzuki B-King, and it's something special. It's the naked, muscle bike street fighter version of the Hayabusa that was built between 2008 and 2012, so not for long, and only 28 were sold in South Africa.
That means that this is a rare motorcycle, and it's not just here in South Africa, well, especially here in South Africa, but even globally, it's a rare motorcycle.
This exact bike is a 2010 model off the showroom floor of bike shop Ravonia. It's not the sort of bike that's pretty, but then that's not the idea. That's like criticizing the monster from the Alien movies for not being pretty. Of course not. This is a monster. It beams menace and masculinity. It's not sexy, but it's intimidating. And this one has been garnished with a bit of aftermarket bling.
Yeah, there's some customizing. There's a bit of bling. There's a screen over here with a little bracket that's got BK written on it, which, yeah, it's all kind of nice. I'm not sure I'm a big bling guy. I'm more of a kind of macked out black stealth kind of guy. But hey, each to their own. Some people really dig it, and good for them.
The motor is straight out of the second generation Hayabusa, with the same inline-4 1340cc motor, enhanced further as the standard twin cannons that stick out the rear of the motorcycle have been replaced by some Yoshimura goodness.
So here's the thing, so the V-twins and the V4s and the crossplanes, they kind of growl at you. Growl. And, you know, to explain the sort of mental arithmetic of this imagery, it's, you know, the growl is kind of a warning. There's, you know, you hear a growl behind you, there's a tiger there somewhere, and that means, hey, listen, I'm growling at you. It means, hey, you better watch out, I'm going to come after you. This bike does not growl. This bike roars. And when something starts roaring, that means there's no more warning now, it's coming for you. It's over, it's done. So that's why this thing has such a kind of as a precedent. It's like every time you open the throttle, you hear imminent death. And more so, at 1340cc, this thing has the biggest roar in the jungle, and the biggest roar is the one that all the other animals are afraid of.
The performance figures are quite staggering. 181 horsepower, coupled with 146 newton meters of torque.
It's really not slow. It's fast, and I don't just mean by 2010. I mean, line this thing up against all the other naked bikes. I'm not sure if it'll win everything. I mean, there's a few fast ones, Street Fighter V4, the MV Augustas, but I think it'll be on the podium. Oh, that's a big lump of movement. The big lump of forward, a big surge of forward. It's an unstoppable surge of forwardness. Yes, I like that. That's good.
But these figures are coming through a naked bike, and not simply a Hayabusa with its fairings nicked.
When you ride the Hayabusa, it's very low to the ground, it's very long. So you sit with your legs sort of cramped and your arms kind of stretched forward, kind of like that. This is not like that. This is relatively high up. I mean, not so high that you can see us from here, but, you know, not cramped. And the handlebars, even though on other naked bikes they may be a bit wider and a bit higher, these are quite close by. So you sit sort of very up straight with lots of kind of room to move. And that's very different. In fact, that missile shape of the Hayabusa, I strongly believe, makes it still one of the fastest accelerating bikes in the world. We've got to try it out, even against those bikes that out horsepower it. Whereas this thing won't be. This thing sort of jumps and moves and sort of, you feel it a lot more. And that's the difference between this and the Hayabusa. The Hayabusa is faster, will definitely be faster, it makes more common sense. This is more theatre. That's the word, it's got a theatre about it. You know, it lights you up, it makes you kind of, makes you feel more alive, makes you feel more part of the action, gives you, dare I say it, even if it's not as fast as the Hayabusa, it gives you more of a sensation of speed than the Hayabusa.
More so, it makes these performance figures in a chassis that's less altogether than the Hayabusa, And that's without any electronic interference. Everything is on the rider. In fact, the only modern electronic comfort it has is an A and B riding mode. That's it. So the B-King is menacing to look at and hugely dramatic to ride. And this bike is on sale for 149,000 Rand.
This specific bike, 16,500k, is almost brand new. And it's such good nick. I mean, this is a mixture of somebody really looking after this, and of course the guys at Bike Shop Rivonia giving a good once over. I'm sort of tempted to buy it myself. In fact, this bike costs pretty much the same as it did when it was brand new. So if someone bought this from new, they're probably going to get they are going to get their money back.
That sounds like a good deal to me.
Another great find by the guys at Bike Shop Rivonia, a model that I knew was pretty thin on the ground, but I hadn't realised only 28 were apparently officially imported into the country. As a fan of naked sport bikes, I'm fond of the B-King myself. It has an obviously memorable engine with huge performance, although that has been combined with some equally significant weight, a good 250 kilos or more once you've put some fuel in it. That weight, some suspension that can best be described as plush rather than sporty, and a huge 1340cc four-cylinder engine make for an experience that, despite the lack of a fairing, is more sport touring than full-on sporting. As Don mentioned, the upright riding position helps with that impression as well. So if you want a monstrous engine in your naked sport bike, you're better off considering some other options that appeared on the scene subsequent to the B-King. When the latest third generation of the Hayabusa appeared, 21, 22 years after the original debuted in 1999, there was plenty of speculation, including from me, that Suzuki might mark the occasion with some significant new engineering development. Top of my wish list was a turbo or perhaps a supercharger, at the very least a jump in capacity up to something borderline bonkers like 16 or 1700cc. I was, probably correctly, ridiculed by some of you in our YouTube comment section for such unrealistic aspirations around forced induction, but I think everyone forgot that the original 2001 B-King concept that Suzuki swore would never make it into production did in fact feature a supercharger. I think if they had pursued the supercharging route with the B-King, the model would have been much more of a sales success, would possibly still be in production, and would obviously have stolen the thunder of Kawasaki's supercharged H2 range that began appearing in 2015. So if you want an up-to-date version of the B-King, then look no further than Kawasaki's naked ZH2 that has been around since 2020. With its supercharged 1 litre 4-cylinder engine, it makes about 10% more power than the B-King with a claimed 200 horsepower, although the smaller capacity and supercharger combination still falls 9 newton meters short in the torque department. As the Americans are so fond of reminding us, there ain't no substitute for cubes. It's a bit lighter, the more modern chassis and suspension mean it handles itself more assuredly when you want to hustle it through some corners, and of course it is stuffed with all the latest electronics, which means that it is much more of a sophisticated machine with an appropriately more wallet-busting price tag. Personally, I'm of the opinion that a big naked sport bike is best served by a more characterful engine configuration, something like the V4s in the Ducati or Aprilia, the triple in the Triumph, or the twins in the KTM or BMW. Or, to be fair, you could consider the seductive sound of the crossplane crank inline 4 of Yamaha's MT-10. All of which is just context, and I have no desire to take anything away from the B-King. A well looked after example like this gives you a serious, unique lump of a motorcycle for a reasonable price when you consider what the new equivalents cost. Just under 150,000 Rand for what is undoubtedly a modern classic with a legend of an engine and some slightly mad Flash Gordon looks. Well, what's not to like?